to begin this one webinar that I'm extremely excited about. We have today joining us a very exciting group of people. Gianluca will be presenting. He's based in Italy. Mark, an American based in Mark, an American who works for WordStream, will also be joining as part of our panel. And we also have Natalie as well. This is really a very, very exciting webinar for me. I think that the topic is very, 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 very interesting. It's regarding, something that I think a lot of people don't get into because it seems a little bit complicated for the average campaign manager. But in reality, I think it's something that you can do if given the right instruction. So what's really fascinating here is that Gianluca is going to show us how, with no programming experience or knowledge, you can create your own automated bidding strategies, which I think come with its own, list of benefits, from allowing you to operate more effectively, more precisely, and also more efficiently by requiring you to have less, hands on the accounts themselves. So this will be very, very exciting. Until we get started, though, we're going to wait a few minutes and let a few other people join. Why don't everyone who's watching already let us know where you're from? It's really quite interesting to hear where we're being watched and listened to from. And by the way, how's it going over in Italy right now, Gianluca?
I'm just very happy the internet connection is still with us. So achievement of the day unlocked. Today we had amazing news here that Italy is back in recession. So fantastic timing.
Well, that's good. Well, okay. In a way, you're conducting international business.
Yeah, we do. Right? For my own company, we are not focusing on the Italian market.
Right. And so there is sort of a benefit to you operating from Italy when that sort of thing happens.
Yeah, you're right. That's I guess there are certain advantages from that perspective. But I do think, right now we live in a world where we right now have the opportunity to talk with people from all over the world, learn from each other. And probably, I guess, location doesn't matter as much as it used 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So that's definitely, I think we live in a very, very fantastic time from this perspective.
As long as you have a strong internet connection.
Exactly. That's it. Back to that.
Yeah. And actually, I heard that I'm based in Tel Aviv, and I heard that our internet connection in Israel comes from fiber lines that are running across the Mediterranean into Italy. So yours can't be any worse than ours. If that's correct. Or maybe it was once, but not anymore.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure our internet is better than the Israeli internet.
I think ours depends on yours, but we'll see. I'm going to look this up later. But wow, we have an interesting group of people here already. I see Francisco from Mexico. Hola, amigo. And then we have someone from Gavin from Cape Town, South Africa. Someone from Turkey, another South African, Jonathan Taylor. We have Poland, India. It's actually quite a mix. Usually we have a lot of Americans as well, but what's interesting is that the percentage of Americans isn't as high as I normally see. We have Sedona, Arizona. Pink Jeep Tours from Sedona. That's really interesting. I'm going to look you up. I'm a little bit of a Jeep enthusiast myself. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I've actually been on their site before.
I'm from Arizona and have had been on one of those tours before.
Really? Okay. Well, Pink Jeep Tours is joining us.
That's wonderful.
I think they have these really big Jeeps that have 3 rows of seats, right? What I mean? Like normal Jeep JKs are 4 doors. They have an extra row.
Yeah.
Am I right? And Jeep Tours.
Yeah, and you can. Yeah, it takes you through Sedona, kind of like off-roading, which is beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's right. I do that in Israel. I have a Jeep JK myself, and it's
wonderful.
Yeah, so but it's a different experience a little bit. Okay, and we have someone else from Italy, Alessia Busato. So maybe you know Gianluca.
I do. We all know each other.
It's Italy, of course. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I think we'll give it a few more minutes before we begin. Again, like I said, I'm really, really excited about this topic. I've been, hosting these webinars for I've probably done maybe 6 or 7 of them in the past, and every time, it was interesting. I got something out of it myself because we have such a wonderful panel of experts that we always use to present. But this one's more interesting because I think it's unique in the aspect that it takes people beyond what they're normally used to as far as PPC is concerned. So it's very exciting here. It's basically, I mean, like, as we know, automation is the future, but in a way, it's giving power back to the people. Where Gianluca is going to show us how you could do it yourself, and in some ways, if you're really good at it, maybe you could do some things better than what Google can do. Especially since your needs might be unique, and it might be something they're not able to optimize from. Yes. Okay. And by the way, Mark, where are you located?
So I'm actually based out of Boston on the East Coast of the U.S. Today I'm joining you from beautiful, sunny Mountain View, California, though.
Awesome. Okay, because I hear weather's really, really cold right now over there.
Yes, and I avoided that by heading out to California.
And intentionally? Is that why you went to California? Or like,
I wish that were the sole reason, that it was strictly for pleasure, but work brought me out here at the perfect time.
Okay. I was in Massachusetts a few weeks ago. Like I went with my family to New York. I'm in Long Island. My wife's family lives there, and the kids really wanted to see snow. And I kind of promised that it would happen, but it wasn't that cold. It was around New Year's. So I rented a car and we drove up to Vermont. And there it was really nice. They had skiing lessons, and it was one of the few times I've seen snow, actually, because I'm originally from Florida.
Oh, nice. No, I'm always very excited to see the first round of snow of the winter. Yeah. It's like this week, it is going to snow 3 separate times, and I'm not exactly missing that this week. Yeah,
it gets old. I can understand that. It's like the tail end of summer. Like in Israel, it's the heat gets to you, but like in Orlando, it's a little bit worse because of the humidity. And then when it starts getting a little cool, it's like, oh, this is so nice. Except the difference is that in Orlando, it stays that way. It never gets too cold. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're going to start soon. So I'm going to formally introduce everyone. So as you know, we have Gianluca with us. He is founder of BoosterBox, which is a performance agency that specializes in scientific marketing. Prior to BoosterBox, Gianluca worked for Google for 6 years, working on different teams within Google Ads itself. Well, actually, it was AdWords then. First as a product specialist, and then he went on to manage online marketing for Google's products in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Gianluca also served as Capital G's advisor, helping startups with their online marketing in Google's own late-stage investment fund. And coming from Mountain View, California, is Mark. He's normally be in Boston. He is the director of strategic partnerships at WordStream. With this role, he is chiefly responsible for creating WordStream's data-driven industry research, analyzing data, spotting trends within over 30,000 Google, Bing, and Facebook ad accounts. Mark has been named one of the 15 most influential PPC experts every year since 2016 by PPC Hero. So, Mark, we're very happy to have you, and I think that your background in dealing with big data and analysis will give some good insight into this presentation once we get to the panel discussion. And last but not least, we have Natalie, who is an account director at Bamboo, which is a digital agency with offices in Seattle and San Francisco. While Natalie specializes in paid search, she's passionate and just generally helping advertisers build their growth marketing stack and be, quite frankly, a disrupting force in their respective industries. In 2018, she was voted as one of the top 5 rising stars in PPC by PPC Hero. So I think that's it for the introductions. And at this point, I will shut up a little bit and let Gianluca take the stage. So whenever you're ready, you may start presenting.
All right, fantastic. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Perfect. I think giving power back to the people is such a compelling title. Thank you, Joel. Today, we titled that Creating Your Automated Bid Strategy, and we're going to dive into that. So this is a picture of me. Few more details. You can find me on Twitter as KTZStyle because I was too young when I picked my username. This is my email, and I will keep saying Google AdWords for a while, so apologies in advance.
Yeah, I can't tell myself either.
All right, so first today we're going to have a super quick recap on how bidding works on Google Search. Then we're going to zoom in on what is a bidding model, and then how we set up the right bid. And lastly, we're going to actually see how we can implement a bidding model in less than 15 minutes in an account. All right, quick recap first on how bidding work. So as we all know, Google is playing a second level price auction, also known as a Dutch auction. This is a very fancy way of saying that you're paying 1 cent more than the person behind you in the auction. If you have seen A Beautiful Mind, you might remember the Nash equilibrium. And if you study economics, all the game theory, there are several theorems that can prove how all actors are incentivized to bid to the max value of a click within this type of auction. So if all operators are rational, everybody will bid to the max value of a click. So that's pretty much how bidding works. If you want to know more, there's a fantastic video from Hal Varian, which is the chief economist at Google. So if you look up for Hal Varian on YouTube, Hal Varian Quality Score, this video will pop up, and it's a fantastic way to get to understand how the ranking works, the bidding works, and actually even how quality score is impacting the ad rank. All right, so what is a bidding model? Now, a bidding model is a super fancy word. So I would like to bring it back to the roots and think farm, vegetables, fruits, this type of product. So imagine one day you decide you are sick and tired of this digital thing and you want to start selling potatoes. You go to the farmer's market. Imagine that is a wholesale type of market. You will go meet a farmer and ask for a price for potatoes. So your idea is you're going to buy cheap potatoes and then sell them at a higher price. On the first day, you're very lucky. And the farmer is going to sell you for $1, 1,000 kilos, or how many pounds they are, I have no idea, of potatoes. But let's say a very cheap price, right? So this is a pretty sweet deal. So obviously, you're happy about that. You will buy those potatoes, flip them, and hopefully make some nice margin, being able to sell these 1,000 kilos of potatoes for more than $1. Now, this is a market, and the market, as you know, is crazy. So the following day, you will go again, asking for bargaining a different price. But this time, the market has changed. So the farmer will sell you the one potato, this time for $1,000. So that's obviously not an exciting price. So probably you won't take this deal because you are not thinking that you will be able to go and flip this potato for more than $1,000. So pretty much what you're trying to assess here, you're running in your brain a function that is trying to assess what is the value of a potato, and if this value of a potato is higher than the cost of the same. So this is it. This is what we're trying to do when we're talking about bidding model. We're trying to figure out if the estimated value of a click or a potato is higher than the cost of a click. And if this is the case, we're going to buy that click or buy more than those clicks. In the days where the click value is actually lower than the cost, we're going to buy less. So the name of the game here is trying to understand how we can formalize and understand a little bit better what is the click value. So we're going to zoom in on that today. So bidding model, it's a very fancy way of pretty much making sure that this function works for our business. So how do we set up the right bid, and how do we identify what is the right value? So we need a few ingredients. First, the first one is a granular structure. So imagine, ad group with proper match type, granular enough, SCAG, exact, and BMM, the same suspect. Obviously, we want relevant ads and landing pages. And obviously, we want complete tracking. So imagine a tracking scenario where we are tracking also the micro conversion, the calls. So where tracking is actually giving us the full picture. And we want to play in an environment where we have a proper attribution model. I think there's a quote from Brett Gaddis here that was saying something around the line of that a great bidding model cannot fix a lousy structure. So yeah, definitely you want to make sure that you have these few things in place before you start thinking about bidding models. There's one more ingredient that I think is needed, is no hippos in the room. And by hippo, I mean highest paid person opinion. I think if you are agency side or even client side, there's always a boss or a client or someone that just want to appear on position number one on all keywords all the time just because. So definitely, no hippos in the room. Otherwise, either you change room, either you focus on another thing, but bidding model probably wouldn't be the right choice. Now, if we have all the ingredients in place, then we can dive in. So we're going to start making first some assumptions. The first one, this is back to our friend Hal Varian, is that conversion rates don't vary much with ad position. There is a study that you will find in the presentation later. This is back from 2009, so not fresh, definitely. In this study, Hal Varian has found, and all the economists at Google, they have found that conversion rate do not really change that much with ad position. Now, this is quite controversial in a way because not everyone agrees with that. So I just want to scroll quickly through the most recent literature on this topic. And there are multiple articles. I want to present 3 or 4 today. This is an article from 2012 where the results of this analysis found actually the opposite, that higher position increases both CTR, I think we can all agree on that, but also conversion rates. So when the ads are served in higher position, you will get more conversion. 1/3 of conversion is coming from a better CTR, but 2/3 of those conversion will be coming from better conversion rates. So definitely this article is going in the opposite direction from the assumption. Another article here, this time from 2011, conversion rates across all 16. So this is old, right? This is back in the days where there were 16 ad position that investigated in those articles. There was a stable distribution. So with exception of those first 2 ads, this study found pretty much stable. So no relationship between ad position and conversion rate. There's a third study here that actually found that the click to conversion rate actually falls according to the rank. So it's higher first and then gradually decrease. But actually, however, the conversion rate for the low volume keywords is the opposite. And last study here from 2017, this is pretty recent, found that if you have a bidding rank that is high enough, you will obviously have higher CTR, but also higher conversion rate. So 4 studies that are finding 4 different things. Why is that so difficult to measure, and why different studies are going in opposite direction? This is because there's a tautological element in a way here. The average position is function of the quality score. We all know that. And we also know that quality score is influenced by the user experience. But we know that the user experience is also a function of the conversion rate, because if we have an amazing website, we're going to have probably better conversion rate. And therefore, the average position, it is connected to the conversion rate. So am I in a high average position because I have a high conversion rate, or do I have a high conversion rate because I am in a high average position? So that's definitely the first element that is very difficult to understand. But also, imagine, if we need to understand and apply this analysis for our own accounts, it would be very difficult, right? Because we can only see average values. So the most granular level of average position that we can see could be splitting that by hour on a single day, downloading those detail by every keyword, or I'm assuming in a SCAG structure by every keyword or every ad group if you don't have SCAG, every day, and then aggregating that. But still, you will be analyzing averages, right? So it is very difficult to measure if average position is impacting conversion rate. So for sake of simplicity, we agree with Hal here. So conversion rate don't vary much with that position. We are buying into these results. All right, so back to where we were. Let's try to dive in now that we clarified the ingredients and the assumption, how we can estimate the click value. So most likely we have a boss or a client or someone that we're interacting with that has in mind a target CPA. So we know from the business, there's a certain target CPA. So starting from that target CPA, there are very simple formula that we can use in order to define what is the potential max value of a click. So we know that CPA is cost divided by conversion, and costs are clicks times CPC. So we can see that conversion are also clicks times conversion rate. If we put everything together, we can simplify things, and we can see that CPA is equal CPC divided by conversion rate. If we solve everything by CPC, then we can see that the max CPC, or value per click, is equal to the target CPA times conversion rate. In other words, the max amount that we're willing to pay is equal to the value of an acquisition times conversion rate, where we could see conversion rate as the likelihood of a click to become a conversion. So that's one formula. But in some cases, we have a target ROAS. We don't have a target CPA. Imagine if you are in e-commerce. So we can get pretty much the same result. ROAS is revenue divided by cost. We can imagine revenue as average order value times clicks times conversion rate, and cost are clicks times CPC. Again, we put everything together. So we will have a ROAS that is average order value times conversion rate divided by CPC. And if we solve everything by CPC, we see that the max CPC, aka value per clicks, will be average order value times conversion rate divided by ROAS. Now, we could try to simplify it a little bit more. We know that ROAS is, we can see ROAS as 1 divided by target margin. This is, for those of you that are working in an agency, sometimes with SMBs, you might find relationship, when you're building a relationship with a client, you will ask them, okay, what's your target ROAS? Not every single business is thinking in terms of ROAS, but every single business owner knows the margin. So 1 divided by margin, I find a very effective way to define the target ROAS. So if you add that into this function, at this point, the CPC is equal to the average order value times the margin times conversion rate, which basically means the max value of a click will be equal to the average order value times the margin that the business is making on that average order value, again, times the likelihood that that click will transform into a conversion. So far, it's very simple. At this point, we just need to figure out how to follow this formula by starting by these 2 metrics, CPA and ROAS. So in order to calculate the value per click, the first ingredient is understanding the value of what we sell in a way, which is in a CPA model, asking what is the target CPA, and in a ROAS model is asking what is the target margin times the average order value. So far, very easy. The problem is the second ingredient, so the conversion rate, aka when we try to establish the likelihood that a click will sell a product. So getting the first 2 metrics easy. The second one, it's a little bit trickier. Why? It might be not that trivial to define conversion rate for a couple of reasons. Number one, we need to define the correct conversion windows. So by conversion windows, imagine that if you go in the not so new anymore interface, you can segment by day, and you can see that you probably are making a bunch of conversion on the first day, but then you also have, so to say, a long tail of of conversion that are staggered in time, and conversion that are happening from the same clicks that you're getting on the first day, but you're getting the conversion after 2-3 days, 3-4, etc., etc. And when you compound everything together, you might have conversion rates here in this graph. You have on X the days windows, and on Y you have the conversion rate. And this is a bunch of campaigns in time. So each line is a different campaign. So you will see that your conversion rate after 1 or 2 or 3 days, it's the classic in the usual range, 1 to 3 to 3 to 4. But then if you give enough conversion window, in this case, we're talking about a remarketing heavy, high value, high type of engagement type of product. So in this specific case, you will see that conversion rates are really massively increasing if you're giving users enough time to convert. So the attribution windows, it's something super important to take in consideration whenever you are measuring your conversion rate. And also, it's not that trivial to define what is, how many clicks do you have in order to draw a line and say, okay, that's it. This is the conversion rate I'm trusting. So you need to define at least X clicks in the last Y days to estimate a certain conversion rate for a keyword. So let's say, you want to make sure that you got at least 1,000 clicks for a certain keywords in the last 90 days in order to estimate the conversion rate. Then for all the keywords that are meeting this threshold, you're golden. You can simply estimate that with, you can simply use that number to estimate the conversion rate. Now, the problem will be for keywords that are not meeting this threshold, because in this case, you will need to make some guesswork in order to estimate what is the right conversion rate. Let me show you an example. I think we all have seen a graph like that. In this case, we're getting, these are data from May 2018 until last week. We got just spare clicks here and there once in a while. And then suddenly last week, we got two conversion in a day, and then few more clicks. Now, let's say we got here, I don't know, 20 clicks and 2 conversion. Can we really say we have a 10% conversion rate on this keyword? Obviously not. Nobody will bid according to expecting that for the next 10 clicks we're gonna sell like we did last week's, right? So the problem will be that we need to do some guessing when we have limited data, and there are a few solutions that we can apply. So number one is extending the time range. So looking at a broader time frame might be a solution to gather more data that are helping us going above the threshold. This is a very rough solution that, not that solid. A better solution would be clustering. So you could cluster keyword by semantic, by campaign type, brand on brand, type of generics keyword, etc., intent keyword, word count, and other variables. So the idea is that you will aggregate keywords that have not enough clicks, and when you aggregate them, you will use those information in order to guess the conversion rate. I want to underline the word count because this is something a little bit counterintuitive that I found effective. In some cases, we found consistency between different conversion rate on keyword at a specific length, so aka word count. So this is something that I encourage people to check. All right, I know what you're thinking. Your Google rep is always calling you and say, hey, the flavor of the week is remarketing list for search ads. You need to apply the audience on search and bid a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. So probably you're thinking, okay, we're really discussing about the value per click, but what about all the information that we have in the account, remarketing on search, demographic bidding, time and device, and location? So the idea is to use bid adjustment. So you can simply use bid adjustment in order to adjust your bid according to, let's say, slicing your data by these different segments. So you will define the core bidding, let's say a keyword level or placement level, with the formula that we defined before, but then you can apply bid adjustment, let's say, by device. Let's see the example of device. I'm going to zoom in on this slide a little bit more. This is the classic GA view, mobile, desktop, tablet, and then we have a bunch of conversion rates. So in this specific case, desktop conversion rate is 5 point peanuts, and mobile conversion rate is 2.5. So pretty, I guess, classic situation. Actually, this is a pretty high conversion rate on mobile, but it's a pretty classic situation where the mobile conversion rate is lower than desktop. So obviously here, the mobile conversion rate is pretty much 47% on desktop. So you will apply on mobile negative bid adjustment. So in this specific case, you will do you're gonna bid less on mobile because you want to make sure that you're adjusting that information in your bidding model. Okay, so we see the theory. Now let's dive in quickly in the implementation. The implementation is fairly easy and it's just divided in 3 steps. You want to collect the data, define the bids, and then upload them. So for the data collection, there are a few options. In order to connect a Google spreadsheet to a Google ad, you can use any software like Supermetrics and Friends. You can use the Google add-on, or there is a beautiful script from Frederick Valles that you can get in this link that helps you to basically connect Google Spreadsheet to Google Ads. So there are different ways. And the first step is to collect the data. In this example, by using Supermetrics, let's say for an e-commerce, you will import clicks, the conversion money per click, the ROAS, the conversion value, the CPC, and you want to do that for different time frames, last 7, 30, 60, and 90 days. So you will populate a spreadsheet with this information. And at this point, you would just compute the bids by using the formula that we've seen before. And in this case, you will end up with something like this, where you have the campaign name, the keyword text, the match type, the bid type, and the amount. So in this case, for the keyword PPC, so this is super meta. We're talking PPC with an example about PPC. You will be bidding $18.6. And the way we're getting to this number is by using the formula that we said above, right? So value per click equal target CPA times conversion rate. And the last step will be uploading. So here you have a dozen million different scripts that you can use. A very simple script is this one here that you will see in the link later. It's pretty old. I think it's from 2013, if I recall correctly, from Russell Savage. This is from Free Adro Scripts. It's a fantastic resource for anyone that is starting with scripts. And it's very simple. As you can see, it's 48 lines. And in this script, it's calling the spreadsheet that we just built. And it will just apply the bid that you decided above. It's a very, very effective script because the computational, the log time, the computational time is quite reduced. So you rarely get timeout. So to summarize, how do we build this? You define a checklist. You define the target CPA and the target ROAS. That's the first point of the checklist. And you define the minimum threshold of clicks that are acceptable for you. And at this point, you will be able to start collecting data into a spreadsheet. In the spreadsheet, you can compute the bid with the formula that we said above. So for keywords above the threshold, you're good to go, and you can directly measure the value per clicks. For keywords that are below the threshold, you can aggregate them, and then you can measure the value per click, and you can aggregate them by expanding the different timeframes or by using a clustering technique. Once you have that, you will simply have the last script to run in order to upload the bid. And that's it. In 15 minutes, you build up your automated bidding model. That's it. If there are any question, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that was very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot, and we do have a few questions here. Let me actually start. First of all, Google is moving towards machine learning type of bidding. Do you have any opinions about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's very difficult to try to build ad tech on top of Google or Facebook because these two machines are constantly changing. And I think overall, I guess the best analogy is like, when you play Monopoly, ruining your friendship with your family forever, right? Every Christmas happening, at least to me. And it's like playing Monopoly and somebody's constantly shifting the board and things are changing. And I think this is the exciting part about our job, right? So I am, I guess, not sure, but my bet would be that this conversation we had today, in a year, 2 years, 3 years time, most likely it's not going to be that relevant because the overall machine of Facebook and AdWords is going more and more towards machine learning type of solution. And this is happening on the ad creativity part. It's also happening bidding and reporting, etc. On the other hand, I do like to have control. I do like, as we said earlier, to power to the people, right? I don't like the black box. I don't like to just blindly trust the machine and, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We don't know why. So also, we've been testing our own approach versus different bidding models provided by Google. And to be honest, when it comes to shopping bidding, for instance, this type of approach in our testing always lost against the Google automated solution for ROAS. So yeah, I guess right now technology is not always there. Machine learning is a fancy way of I guess repackaging sometimes all technology. But yeah, in my own experience, I would say, one, this is the direction where the overall machine are going. And if probably technology is not there, maybe it will be. And two, if you start with something like that, with an automated bidding model like that, this is something that you want to challenge and test that against other different solutions provided by Google.
Okay, I can understand that. Actually, I have a question from Irna Zikanto. How often do you run the script, and how much time do you take to collect the data?
All right. So we are collecting the data on windows of 7, 30, and 60 and 90 days, if I recall correctly. It depends on the size of the volume, right, that you're getting of clicks. So it really depends on the budget, investment, and industry, etc. But most likely, we're running the script or a daily or on a weekly basis and refreshing the bid on a weekly basis. And in terms of data collection, again, you wouldn't go too far in time, probably more than 90 days ago. Then, probably the market conditions are changing. So this is something you want to take in consideration. That's why I said earlier that the approach of clustering data is smarter than the approach of extending the time frame, because extending the time frame, if you're looking too far back, it's just a different market.
Okay, good answer there. And I actually have more questions coming. And by the way, Natalie, Mark, if you have any input on this, because I know you guys have a lot of experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of going back to that initial question around Google shifting a little bit more to machine learning, and what we talked through today was very exciting because it allows us to just kind of work smarter and not harder, which is kind of this mentality that I try to push. But I think what I'm most excited about with kind of the shift of focus is that it allows us as marketers to focus on things that are going to be, a little bit potentially more impactful, more interesting, a little bit more innovative, instead of, going and manually calculating bids every single time, running a script that will help automate a lot of that manual work allows us to be a little bit more strategic in what we're doing, because that definitely seems to be where advertisers are wanting to go.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely, there's a lot of opportunity for Google automation, particularly in those segments where there is minimal data that we talked a lot about. It's very difficult to make a conclusion about what conversion rate or what this click value could be if I've never bid on this keyword or I'm not getting a lot of traffic from this. Google does have additional insights about that kind of traffic and why you might not have additional data on that that can guide those decisions for a lot of those long tail or those low volume keywords. And as you mentioned, with smart shopping in particular, there's a huge wealth of information about other advertisers who are selling a similar product at different price points in different markets with different offers. They do use that information to guide a lot of their own machine learning decisions on the bidding algorithm there. So even where I would love to sit here and pretend that I know everything about everything that is bought and sold online, Google would like to say the same thing, but they're much closer than I personally am. And so the decisions they're making are a little bit more intelligent than the ones that I might necessarily make.
Okay, that is true. I mean, sorry, that is true sometimes though, but I kind of find that there's always some instances where you have something unique that they haven't necessarily have figured out. And also for example, a lot of their machine learning is based on, a lot of their bidding algorithms is based on trends. It's based on the assumption that what has happened will continue to happen. Well, that kind of breaks if something let's say, a big holiday comes around, let's say there's a weekend off, or let's say, for example, there's right now in the Northeast, or sorry, in the United States, there's this big cold snap. User behavior is different. I mean, I kind of feel that at that time it could be very possible that that their conversion optimization isn't necessarily optimizing for it, and that could be an instance where it is necessary to in a way take that power back into your own hands and maybe shut it down and run it on your own. Also true, for example, could be, let's say you're running a very high traffic account within in conversion optimizers, running on optimizing off of a lot of conversion history, and let's say your servers are down for a day. You might not run as effectively for the following days, and it might work better for you if you take back control and do some manual bidding until the Google history becomes stable again.
No, certainly. I think that's a problem that you're going to hit regardless of whether or not you trust Google as your source of truth or as you trust your own data as a source of truth. That if, let's say, Lindsay Lohan goes and does something with your product or service today, no, there was no way that Google could have predicted the actions of that particular thing, but it is going to change search behaviors and it's going to change consumer behaviors because she does X, Y, and Z in an Instagram post. And that's going to change the search volume and the search interest and the customers who are searching for you and buying for you online. but how are you reactive to that? You certainly lose some options as you trust a faceless machine to automate this for you. But similarly, unless you know everything in the world about what Lindsay Lohan or the celebrities or the weather or politics or anything are going to factor into your campaigns, it's very difficult to sit here and say that I'm better off with 100% of control, 100% time over everything all the time because I'm personally going to manage this 24/7.
Right, which is why it's important to know how to be able to handle it on your own, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is a very classic kind of argument that we as like paid search marketers have, right? It's like wanting to have control versus understanding that Google, does know all in a way. And the way that I tend to go about it is kind of weighing my options of where I'm going to have the biggest impact. So am I going to have the biggest impact by executing manual bids and potentially squeezing out, a little bit of additional revenue or conversions or whatever it may be? Or am I going to, be able to make a bigger impact by, doing a creative analysis of my display campaigns and, optimizing that, kind of taking things that I can't allow to be machine learning and, focusing a little bit more on that versus kind of doing some of the manual thing. I think this is a battle that we all deal with, but that's typically how I try to prioritize my tasks or my decisions, is just basing like where am I going to make the biggest impact.
Okay, I have a question that just came up for you. Now, the formula that you use to calculate bids is a way to understand the value per click that you would like to ideally get. You're suggesting that to use it as the max CPC bid. The question is, how do you compensate for the fact that usually the actual bid price is less than the max CPC bid that you entered?
Yeah, that's the reason why we are maximizing our bid exactly at the max value per click that we're willing to pay, is the fact that we rely on paying less than that, so that we know that worst case scenario, that will be our margin. So let's say our value per click is $10 on the keyword Lindsay Lohan. I can't wait to
what are you selling now?
to go and follow her now. Lindsay Lohan poster, let's say. Okay, let's not sell Lindsay Lohan. We're bidding $10. I'm gonna follow her on Instagram tonight.
So Lindsay Lohan, exact negative.
All right, yeah, that should be it. So Lindsay Lohan poster for $10. That's our max value per click, because we're selling the poster for, I don't know, $50 and our conversion rate, let's say $100 and our conversion rate is 10%. Now, as rational operator, we should be $10, right? And we know that the person behind us is gonna bid $7. We don't know, but we will pay $7.01. So the 3 will be our margin. So we rely. These are really smart questions. We rely exactly on this question, on the point that is underlined in the question, in order to make margin. I think there's a very fun. I mean, I love Google almost as much as I love my mom, right? I worked there for many years and I'm really grateful, but there are certain ways that sometimes Google tends to be a little bit paternalistic. So I guess the second level price auction, don't worry, you only pay 1 cent more than the person behind you in the auction. It is really a way to say bid as much as you possibly can, because there's, the game theory is teaching us the user will behave like that, right? So back to the, I guess, philosophical question, control versus power to the people. Yeah, I think it's just nice to have the option that that if you really, really want, and you have time to spend in bidding, you can control it.
Do you ever, by the way, play with those margins? Like, for example, sometimes the cost to go from position 1.4 to position 1 will be much higher per extra user that you bring, to where it is better maybe to pay less than, in other words, it might be worth better to pay less per sale and get only a few fewer sales when you're like pinned in very close to the top position, than when, let's say, you're on position 3, where being a bit more aggressive might bring a lot more customers. So you kind of want to, do you ever like play with that to shift your budget to different keywords that might give more value?
Yeah, absolutely. That's especially imagine the cases where you are maxed, you have a defined budget and your campaign are maxed. In that case, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't bid max value, right? You should make sure to do a smarter strategy, something similar to what you said. So spreading your budget a little bit more wisely and not doing all in on all keyword, knowing that you will make that margin on the difference with the person behind you, right? So in the scenario where the campaigns are unlimited budget, and sometimes, we are working with advertisers that are lucky enough to have unlimited budget as long as we're hitting targets. We're going this way in scenario where we have a defined budget, defined PO, etc. We are using a model that is actually much more conservative and is taking in consideration, is kind of testing how to squeeze value out of the different positions.
Okay, that's great. So I have now one thing we promised people, by the way, is that they're going to leave here with knowledge on how to write their scripts. So I have a question regarding that. It's from Irina again. She's asking what language is used for writing the scripts. Where is better to start if she doesn't have any knowledge of the programming and is willing to learn and write these scripts? So besides what we have here, and the examples that you will be uploading, which we could use later, is there anywhere you could send us where we can, get more resources on it?
Sure. I personally learn by going on Stack Overflow and copy pasting things and failing and taking hours. And then I hire people that are much better than me. So thank God now I ask them. Usually I go to them with a script and they're like, oh my God, that's cute. Trashing it, and they rewrite it from zero. So that's my level. But I think if you go on Search Engine Land, there's a fantastic series actually that I believe is called How Do I Start with Google Script? So Google Script outdoor scripting is a language that is not dissimilar from JavaScript. And in searching that on Search Engine Land, you will see, I think it's a series of 3 articles that contains a little bit of theory and some practical example. Another fantastic resource to start diving into scripting is the Google Developer Forum and the Google Developer Help Center. So there is a bunch of scripts that are off the shelf with the instruction on what you need to change. And it's really not that daunting. It sounds daunting in the beginning, like, oh my God, I need to change line of code. But it's, if you can copy and paste, you can do that, right? You just need to change a couple of lines and that's it. I think sometimes as marketeers, we all play, bidding model, machine learning attribution, coding and scripting in others' API. It's really, you copy paste something, change a line, and that's it. It's not rocket science.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely agree with that. I am not by any means anywhere near being someone who can understand coding or programming. One of the ways that I started implementing scripts was using the resources that he mentioned, but starting off with scripts that didn't make changes to my account, so they felt a little less scary. Looking at how these start to execute, and then once I can see that I can implement something without blowing everything up, then start implementing things that are actually making changes. So, but yeah, those resources are wonderful.
Yeah, they definitely are. Okay. Earlier, you were talking about bit adjusting for like dimensions such as devices. What happens, let's say, if you bit adjust? How do you handle bit adjustments when you adjust on multiple dimensions at the same time? For example, let's say you find in a given, let's say, ad group or campaign or whatever, that you're wanting to adjust devices as you outlined over there, and then you adjust for hours of the day on the campaign level. And some of these, so in the device level, some of the adjustments you might make might be plus 20 or 30%, and then you're adjusting hours of the day, and some of the adjustments you make there might be plus 30%, and then you also make additional adjustments on, let's say, a demographic bid, and then you make additional adjustments, let's say, on some geo target, to where some people in some location at some certain hour has a bid adjustment of plus 500%. Is that a problem? Like, how do you?
Yes, it is a problem, and you're spot on. You have this compounded effect, right? It's like when you study economics, and sometimes you study models, and they're like, okay, so this is how life works. We're just gonna assume that everybody's unemployed and that everybody's looking for a job, and that everybody is actually very smart, and the likelihood is 12%, 12%, and 12%, and then the final likelihood is actually 0.7% of this hypothesis matching, right? In this case, you're bidding, you have a compounding effect of all these bids. So we're using a very rough way to counteract that, which is setting limits, both negative and positive. So if something is above, I don't know, 15, 20, 50, whatever amount of dollars we define as max threshold or minimum threshold, then we stop the bidding at that level. So we're using that for another system. But I think, if this panel can suggest something smarter than that, I would really appreciate it, because this is a change we're thinking of making to our next iteration.
I personally have had as well, so that's why. And I saw the question, I thought it was interesting. And actually now we have William Rock, she's actually a regular on my series. He's asking, how do you work with bid? And also he has the same name as a high school teacher I had like many years ago. How do you guys work with bid adjustments for the call extension? He's playing with driving more traffic to certain campaigns to show the higher lead conversions and decrease bids on lower performers. So he's trying to show higher lead conversions and decrease bids and lower conversions. So he's asking about how to do it for adjustments on call extensions. Any opinion there, guys?
I think what I'm trying to understand is they could send traffic to a website and get a lead form. Is a call. And in general, the play I run here is that most often a live person who is willing to speak to another live person, seldom as it may be in 2019, that's a hotter lead, and therefore it's generally a higher value lead. And so I would similarly be willing to pay more per click to attract someone in that moment when they need to speak to someone right there. Now that is, again, an assumption, and I'll let you validate that through your own CRM or through your sales teams or whomever to discover whether or not that call lead is more valuable than the actual form lead itself. If that's true, then absolutely happy to bid more for it. There are certainly going to be objections or exceptions to that rule where that person on the phone isn't as qualified as the person who actually fills out a form. So think of be calling emergency care or something along those lines. That person might just really not be looking to make an appointment or just looking to check up on something, and that might actually be a lower value lead, and so it might be a chance to bid less for that. But in general, in most cases, I run into a situation that I bid up considerably on those calls because they're generally a higher value lead for us.
Okay. Also, he adds that they're recording each call and tagging them with UTMs. But I think that kind of keeps the answer the same. Just in addition to it. Gianluca, so you're into automation. You're helping us out here with, do you do any other automation?
Yeah. We're very lazy here. We have this right mix of being lazy and OCD. So you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. You do something scrappy and then you're like, yeah, actually I need to fix it now. And then you work the entire night to fix it, right? So that's why I didn't even have time to shave. No, on a serious note, yes, we're very lazy. So we automated a few things. We automated campaign building. We automated the SDR. We automated a bunch of stuff in terms of brand safety. I think a very, very exciting things that we did in the last couple of quarters was doing a much better job in automating the SDR. So all the process of identifying the queries that we're getting and trying to isolate queries that deserve to be moved to a dedicated ad group, and then queries actually that are burning our traffic. And a nice way to do that is probably to aggregate this query, and using Ngram is the classic suspect, but there are different algorithms that you can use in order to see if you're making the same mistakes across different ad groups. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a Lindsay Lohan posters, and then you have another ad group that is Gwyneth Paltrow posters, and then people will search for to print at home, and you have three. I'm going really into that style of celebrities. I know this is the crowd. And let's say you have one ad group where you have 3 impressions and 3 wasted clicks on people, and that's the Lindsay Lohan, on people that are searching to print at home. You will never see that manually, right? Because you will never scroll up until something that spent 30 cents, right? You will Pareto all the way, just clean the top keywords and make sure that you have enough data to directionally move the account. So automation is much better than human, because allows us in this specific case of finding the same mistakes across different ad groups. And that would be, oh, wait, actually, there are multiple people that are searching for to print at home. So that's the part that we need to exclude across the board in all the campaigns. So that was one example of something. As you know, STR is quite boring. So we're very excited that we got to get rid a little bit of that.
Okay, that's one reason. So you're talking. Okay, is there any like do you have any tools actually though that like you really find very useful for yourself? I'm personally just very curious. Like besides that one itself, I mean, like
we found very, very useful something we did fairly recently to monitor brand. As you know, sometimes your brand is under attack and there are thousands of competitors that are bidding on your brand. But also you're running ads on remarketing, let's say, and you don't know where the ads are appearing. So we put together a tool that's sort of a packaged brand protection that is basically trying to understand, better than the auction insight, right? In the auction insight, you would see when it's too late, oh my God, our CPC increased because 3 more competitors are bidding now. So we're building something that using API is searching on Google to see if there are competitors that are bidding against us and sending an alert. So this is something that we can take action faster. And sometimes action is telling legal. Some other times is actually bidding more. So it really depends on the industry there. And also they are coming together with a bunch of tools that are analyzing where our ads are appearing. They crawl the content of the website where we appear. They try to guess if these are bad website or good website from a brand safety perspective, and then they will add that site as negative. This last tool, actually, we're outsourcing that. So we're gonna publish that. It's called Zool, like the gatekeeper in the Ghostbuster 2, obviously. So we're gonna publish on our website tomorrow morning Europe time. So if you guys go and refresh for 12 hours, you will have it tomorrow.
Oh, you could just like tomorrow, but you're giving it away for free?
Yeah. This is the second part we give it for free because we believe it's like comedian. Any comedian, it's such a frustrating life. You always play the same gig every day. So we're forcing ourselves to become a better company by giving a little bit for free of our technology.
Does this work through you need to like have it. This works through the API though.
Yeah, this one, it's Python based, so it works. You need to have the API token, yeah.
Okay. So you need to be a little more advanced to use it, but that does sound very interesting.
Yeah, but it's free anyways, so.
Okay, great. This has been great for me, and I'm sure it's been good for everyone else out here as well. We are running a little short on time. Before we go, though, I'd like all of you, I mean, each one of you, if you could just maybe just give us one piece of advice regarding anything related to automation or bidding. And also feel free to also, let people out there know how they could contact you if, you would like to be contacted.
Sure.
So Gianluca, you go first.
I go first. All right. So you can email me at gianluca@boosterboxdigital.com. And so if you have any question on this script or, I don't know, any script or anything in life, I can try to provide an answer. And I guess what my piece of advice on bidding would be challenge the assumptions that you sometimes are given in the brand book, in the best practice on the Google Ads Center, that are sometimes great but written for SMBs and not super sustainable and scalable for any other business. So it would be challenge what you read there by testing it.
Okay, cool. And Natalie, how about you?
Yeah, my piece of advice would definitely be to weigh the impact of your time. So utilize automation as a way to be more efficient in what you're doing and to allow yourself to, focus on things that are going to be a little bit more strategic or frankly have a bigger impact to the business. That would be my piece of advice. To contact me, you could find me on Twitter at Natalie Beretta. If you want to shoot me an email, you can email me at natalie@growwithbamboo.com.
Yeah, I think that's very true. You don't want to be stuck like in this long list of keywords that really don't make a difference at the end of the day. It's really good to focus on what matters the most. So that's definitely a good one. And well, okay. And Mark, how about you?
Yeah, no, I honestly love Natalie's advice. I think that the biggest thing when it comes to automation is you've got to be honest with what you personally are going to do in that account. A lot of us are in-house, a lot of us are agency, a lot of us don't do paid search 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week or 160 hours a week. So if you've got 1 million keywords and you've only got a couple hours a week to do it, you're a better candidate for automation than someone who has 30 and several hours to make sure they're on top of that every single day. And so I'd let that guide your decision towards trusting automation here. If you want to follow me on Twitter, at MarkIrvin89. If you actually go to Semrush's Twitter and follow them, they've been doing a fantastic job of promoting this series as well as coming series. And they also include all of our Twitter handles there. So by all means, you can just kill off 4 birds with 1 stone and by following Semrush there.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of stuff with me as well. One thing I want to leave you guys with, because I've thought a lot about this, and whether it's automatic bidding or manual bidding, in order for bidding to be successful, you need to have 2 things happen. The first is that, well, bidding is based on historical information, historical data. So the first that needs to happen is you need to have a situation where the future will repeat the past in a consistent manner. So for bidding to work effectively, the last few days, last few weeks, and so on have to be representative of what will happen in the future. So keep that in mind. No matter how you're bidding, especially whether it's automated or manually. And the second one is that in order for you to set bids, like I said, data is key, and you need to have significant statistics to work with. And significant statistics comes with volume on volume. And if you find that your volume is very, 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 very thin, you might want to cut your targeting a bit so that way you could focus your budget on fewer elements so that way you have more actionable stats to work with. So sometimes less gives you more, less keywords in an account gives you more actionable statistics so you could bid more accurately. Something I thought about before. So it's really been a pleasure, guys. And you could find me on Twitter as well, and LinkedIn, and just Semrush as well. I'm all over the place there. So yeah, Gianluca, Mark, Natalie, I look forward to speaking to you all again, and thank you very much for this past hour.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.